This is Dr. Narendra Shah, my very good friend, and he was with me in Bangkok. He did his masters. Then he did it from France. Then he has been working with IIT Bombay. There is a center called Sitara that he only literally started some 25 years back. So he's very active in all the activities. He integrating all the university professors, different various topics. He has worked with various subjects, especially mostly the farmer oriented. The thing, latest one, many things he will tell you about the flowers, the rural tribes he has worked on, rural and how to improve for the children. This all he has worked on. Sugarcane on the field, he can make food. There is vellam butter they put. So that all he has worked on. Right now, in a very prestigious post, he is the member secretary of Rajiv Technology Commission. So that is exactly the state of Maharashtra, government of Maharashtra Science and Technology Division. Yes, it is a science and technology. He is heading that. So we have to thank him. I really thank him for giving the time. So he will like to share his advice with you students. And Dr. Narendra Shah, students be as well as some masters and PhD students are also present, and other states also, not necessarily. Please take care.
Can I start now? It's my time starts.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Dr. Syed, young students there. I hope you are able to hear me. Am I loud enough, or is it okay? My voice is reaching there.
Yes, this type of tone is good, not the first one. Very good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So very good morning, and it's a wet Mumbai now. I wish I was sort of in person seeing you and talking to you. That would have been that much more interesting. So my first actually interaction with the TNAU students, College of Agriculture Engineering, was about 7 to 8 years back, when they went on a all India trip, and Mumbai was part of their visit. And I remember interacting with some 45 students along with their faculty member. And this happened actually twice, and somehow it did not continue later. But when I did interact, I did show my labs to the students who sort of, I don't know if those faculty members are there around, but I think it gave them a good opportunity to see what's around. And I think the students were later taken to BARC labs and things like that. So as my good friend Dr. Syed, I must congratulate you for this initiative, because this really gives, because at that point in time, also when your students visited from your college, I found that at least 50% of them did not speak a word. They were a little shy, and getting exposure, getting visit, getting used to the, a simple thing like the, the style in which you speak. Perhaps, my English is not a Tamilian English. So my English is like, a Bombaya English. So yeah. So Dr. Syed introduced me. I was about 25 to 30 years. I taught at IIT Bombay, and the subjects which are very, very close to agriculture engineering. I taught subjects like food processing and nutrition. Then I taught soils and agriculture, and then I taught a subject called agro-based industries. How do you design and sort of, create case studies? So these were the subjects which are really you study in the textbooks. But when you really actually, Syed, can we go to the next slide, please? So when you actually, next slide, please. Yeah. So when you actually want to work on a real life problem, when you are given a problem, you see that how one has to sort of resort to the fundamentals or the science or the engineering aspects, and then one resorts to handbooks. For example, when I was working on a project on drying, it was a project on paper drying. For example, the particular project was collecting the waste from the tailors, whatever is the offcuts from the cotton clothes that the tailors were stitching. And since it is cellulose, all of you would know that cellulose, the waste cellulose was used in order to make the papers. Paper still forms one of our important packaging material. If you see the literature today on packaging, which is kind of an important part of food processing and packing, 33%, that is one third of the packaging material is formed by paper even today. So this particular problem that I was given to was, when you convert these waste cellulose or waste cotton material into paper, that how do you dry it? See, a simple problem was as this is like, that 4 months from June, from now till September, it rains in Mumbai, and this particular unit was located in a place about 100 kilometers from here, called Pain or Panvel, those who are familiar with Mumbai. And in 4 months of during rains, you can't dry these particular papers. And so the problem given was, how do you dry them? So now the theory, we know it. We know it from Hall's book, on crop drying, for example. I'm sure all of you will study in your later years. I understand you are first year, second year students, and some of you are postgraduate students. So those who have done completed BE would know that in your drying handbook, for example, all that data would be given. You use that temperature, you use that velocity of the air, and the batch time for the drying would be so much. Now, here was a problem given to me. You have these papers which are about 3 millimeters thick. And how do you dry? Can you dry it like clothes, for example? You dry clothes in your houses. Can you dry it like that? How can you sort of, get what could be the capacity of the blower so that you get that much of air? And then how do you design an air heater? Okay, because this air which is coming during the monsoon is completely saturated with water. For example, relative humidity in Mumbai areas, coastal areas, where this dryer was to be installed, the relative humidity of air is very high, like more than 90%. So some of you who, as I said, who have studied the course would have known how to calculate relative humidity, how to estimate relative humidity based on wet bulb temperature, dry bulb temperature, and things like that. But here was a design. I was supposed to design the dryer. Then you have to resort to sort of, the data books on heat and mass transfer. I referred to a handbook of a Paris handbook in chemical engineering. Can you go to the next slide also? So what I'm trying to coming to is, in a lifetime of an engineer, when you become graduate B, these are some of the tasks that you will come across. What you do is you observe, to sort of, one of our colleagues from an institute called IISC Bangalore, Indian Institute of Science, which is located in Bangalore. What he would say that your research problems not necessarily you pick up in the journal articles. What he said, that you observe around, read the newspaper at the times, and you see what difficulty people, because that in a research, 25% of your problem is solved if you identify the problem correctly. Okay, so having identified a problem and go from the demand side, what people feel in their process or in their product development, what are the sort of, drudgeries, or what are the difficulties they are going through. Then another important verb that, or the act or the task that engineers will have to go through is measure. Now, is that parameter measurable? How can you measure it, for example? So I'll give you a simple example. Since you come from a nearby area called, the city named Coimbatore, there's a lot of cotton textiles around. Now we know how do you sort of measure the texture of the cotton. You just feel with your hand how good is the texture. Now, can you measure that texture? So I'm just leaving some of these thoughts. We in a short lecture, Dr. Syed, I may have 10 minutes put together, or another couple of minutes. Can I take
10 minutes? You can take
10 minutes. Yeah. So the third important task is design. Once you have observed a problem, once you have made a problem statement on what problem is to be solved, then you design. Then you first design your experiments. If it is like a completely new topic, you do some kind of experiment. Then there is your statistics professor would teach you what is design of experiment. What are your dependent parameters? What are your independent parameters? Then what kind of an equipment you will require? And how do you sort of, if it is like an equipment which is like, off the shelf, which is bought from the shelf, like in the case of drying of paper, I gave you an example, that you have to buy a blower or you have to buy an air heater. If that particular air heater capacity is not available, you will have to design. Then what kind of energy you use? Can you use electrical energy? If it is something which is located in the rural area, you may not have electricity there. If not, then can you burn biomass and get that heated air? So all that would come to. So design is another important function that you'll have to carry. Then construct it. Once you have designed that piece of equipment, you'll have to construct it, and you may take help from other sort of your technicians, but you'll have to basically look after the if the equipment is constructed as per your design. Then you do pilot testing of that in the labs or on your site, install it and monitor the performance. And performance monitoring means what? You will do some heat and mass transfer things like that. So for example, what Dr. Syed mentioned is that I worked on a project called jaggery making. Many of you, if I was present, I will ask you to raise your hands. How many of you have seen a jaggery unit? But since Tamil Nadu is an important area where sugarcane is grown, I'm sure many of you would have seen how a jaggery is made, where you crush cane and get the juice and evaporate basically water, and you get a raw sugar, which is called non-centrifugal sugar. The other sugar that we use in our houses now is white refined sugar. But ancient form of a sweetener was jaggery, and which is turned out to be good. So when you want to monitor or measure the performance in the field of that particular equipment, what you'll have to do is like you'll have to see what is the energy efficiency, how much you have put in energy, what kind of mass conversions that you got, like 100 kilograms or 1 ton of cane, how much of jaggery it gives and things like that. Can you go to the next, please? Yeah. So of late, I think all of you have seen what Corona created a difficulty, and there was a reverse migration in many people who work in Mumbai, for example, were unable to do work for years together, and then they returned back to their places. So can we sort of help this reverse migration? This is a thing which our ex-president Abdul Kalamji called it as rural urbanization. There are different names. People also call it silage project and things like that. Next slide, please. So just click the next one. Yeah. So for example, for this, you need some skills. If you want to be employable, you have to have some skills. And what you see, for example, on the right hand side, the threats and opportunities, these are external. The top ones are external because they come from a market, they come from outside. What are the opportunities and what are the threats? But what you can build yourself are your internal skills, which the society there will value. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Next slide, please. So here is something which our own, where Dr. Syed mentioned that I am with a commission now, and the chairman of the commission says that, and we have sort of funded some projects which are under this silage. Like how can you sort of enable the rural youth who is maybe who has a formal education, who does not have a formal education? We say as is, where is. Can we take these young kids and the sort of empower them with something, because becoming B is not only your own sort of getting the job, but how can you create jobs for other people. For me, Dr. Syed is the perfect kind of an example. I mean, when he came out as a graduate, he never begged for the jobs. He created jobs for people. So my appeal here is, for example, build your skills. You are in your first year, or you are in BE, or you are in your postgraduate programs. Build your skill sets. Next slide, please. Build your skill sets, and try and sort of develop. If you will not have the skills of problem solving, the world is not going to sort of respect you. At the same time, if you have some of these skill sets, so I have called them as some analytical or soft skills, and on the right hand side square gives you hands-on skills, for example, to deal with equipment and components, and analytical skills is of course your soft skills. I am sure in the program Dr. Syed and his colleagues will talk more about all those softer skills. How do you deal with this electronics equipment and getting measurements and doing some analytics, data analytics. So that is softer part of the skills and hands-on skills. The next one, please. Next slide. Yeah. So we also say that, this is just keep clicking one more time. Yeah. So you have this STEM is like, your science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that kind of skills which you have, based on which you have gotten this admission in BE engineering. So we presume that, you know good physics, good chemistry, and that's what you come to sort of see, how physics and chemistry and mathematics is used in sort of engineering professional degree that you are following. Then another like for your softer skills, you need this language, environment, arts, and finance. And of course, the root is something which you call your family, friends, social support systems. So this is a model which I sort of present often when you want to build your skills. Next one. Yeah, so I think we will not deal too much on this, but what I just want to impress once again here is like problem solving needs one of the important sense in identification or the assessment of the needs assessment on the field of the people is something which is very, very important. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think just go to the next slide. I think this older version got sent to you, but what I wanted, next slide, please. What I want to say here is what are those challenges that, no, one slide back. So what are those challenges, those three challenges, what I want to sort of, that there is a consumer demand, and the sort of the organizations like FAO and our own ministries would say that, lesser and lesser people will be engaged in agriculture. In Maharashtra, for example, we have something like 55-45. 55% of the people are in villages, 45% on the urban areas. Now, the trend is lesser and lesser people will be engaged in agriculture. How do you sort of provide that 2035, that kind of a food demand, which is, and consumer is becoming extremely conscious. They do not want a processed food. They have learned that something which is refined is not good for their body. Nutrition sciences keep telling that, you give something which is nutritious, not only tasty but nutritious. Now, how do you do that? So that's a challenge which I feel one of the challenge where agriculture engineers have a definite scope or definite role to play. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So of course, in the domain of agriculture, the question people are asking is how can you get more from less? I mean, to say use less water, use less fertilizers. How can be more productive using less? So there was something what you call as input intensive agriculture, which came out of Green Revolution, that you provide more water, more fertilizers, you'll get more productivities. But now people are asking for sustainability. How can you sort of produce more from less? So there again, agriculture engineers can build their skill sets, can bring their domain knowledge, and try to sort of help our major stakeholder, that is farmer, to sort of deliver that food which is with the lesser inputs. Next slide. Yeah, go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. Yeah. So this is something which I picked from what Dr. Syed had sent me at one time when I was at AIT Bangkok some 2 years back, that so many tons of fruits, are collected and sold directly. So we have one FPO which is called Sahyadri Farms. He is our own student. He's an agriculture engineer, a junior to me, and he has now built a FPO which is of worth of some 4,000 crores. So he found that need. He found that his niche market, and not that he hit at the solution right away. He did have failures in the beginning in his career, but today he's one of the important agro-based industry supplier, and he has been taken on the Maharashtra government advisory board on how, for example, farmers can be well connected in the economy. Next one. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, Saeed, I just want to sort of just tell them about these 4 projects that we carried out. One, Jaggery, already we told. Another was this.
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, for example, this project, it's about 150 kilometers from Mumbai. There is a place called Palghar, and where the farmers own only 1 acre, half acre, 2 acres at the most. 15 years back, most of the jasmine that we call mogra in Hindi, jasmine flowers were imported from a city of Bangalore to Mumbai. And it so happened that 20 years back, one agriculture officer said that, okay, so what if the land is not flat, or the terrain is like slopey? So he tried, putting some mogra plantations there about 20 years back. And today, for example, I must tell you that we have something like 6,000 farmers who are growing this mogra. Now, once you have the farmers produce, his major problem is, where is the market? Where does he sell it? How can he sort of sustain unless he has a market? And to tell you the truth, if, as I again once I'll say, if I was in person, I'll ask you, what is the cost of mogra per kilo? You will not be able to guess. In some time, it sells in the Matunga market at 1,200 rupees per kilo, because you're only sisters and mothers who have migrated perhaps from Tamil Nadu long many years back in a suburb called Matunga here. They would like to have the mogra flowers and sort of use as jewels, everyday fresh flowers they would need. So the problem was, how do you get the kilometers? Can we design a supply chain which is cold a chain kind of a thing? And you don't need 0 degrees or sub-0 degrees here. You need some 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, up to 10 degrees Celsius. So how do we sort of, and the poor farmers had to get up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock to come to the market in Mumbai, because 150 kilometers travel, as I mentioned. And the even children of the farmers had to get up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning to ensure that by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock early morning, the flowers reach here. So we devised the technology for them. We created some kind of a refrigerators and provided to the farmers, and said that one day earlier they can pluck the buds, because in the mogra, what happens as soon as the bud opens into the flower, its market value is lost. Okay, so we gave this solution, and we are happy to tell you that there's an NGO called BIAF, Bharatiya Agro-Based Industries Foundation, based out in Pune. They formed a FPC based on that, like Vanapushpa, and we sort of could do this intervention by taking farmers with us. Then another project that I would like to mention here is, we have a region here. I think in Tamil Nadu also you grow cotton. As soon as you pick up those bolls of cotton from that plant, what is left is called cotton stalk. Now that cotton stalk, in a month's time, it becomes that hard that even animals don't eat it. So we had this kind of a serendipity. One of my PhD students had worked on ozone for enhancing shelf life for tomatoes, for example. So it was a serendipity. He just soaked the cotton stalks in the ozonated water. And what he found, that the lignin cellulose bond was broken and that cotton stalk became softer. And to our surprise, when we made some briquettes and fed it to the cows in IIT's campus, they ate it very well. And then we made a project out of it 5 years back. And I'm so happy to tell you that our own commission is now funding a project which is like involving an industry which will make a plant of 10 tons per day from this cotton stalk. Okay. And the last project that I would like to say is like, decentralized small scale seed storage units. See what happens typically in Maharashtra, or I think in other states also. I'm mentioning Maharashtra because my study was concentrated for Maharashtra state. The seed storage units are never installed in coastal areas. So again, if Syed, if I was present with the students, I would have asked them the reason why you cannot put seed storage unit in the coastal areas. Of course, the answer is obvious. Relative humidity in the coastal areas remains high. Therefore, there is a loss in germination count and viability count. Therefore, all seed storage units are in Nagpur, Akola, and all Marathwada and all those areas where relative humidities are close to 50, 60, 70%, below 70% basically. So, if we sort of, these coastal area farmers, if they want a decentralized seed storage so that that can be get distributed, how can you design small cold storages for them, which works on, this without having to depend on the electricity. It can work on that thermoelectric effect and can provide some, 100 kg seeds can be stored so that they will be tied up with the seed company, and the seed company will provide this to this village sort of a dealer for maintaining this 100 kgs of good quality seeds, which will give you good germination count and a viability count. So I end my talk there. I think last slide is thanks slide. Perhaps last slide, please. Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Syed.